So I'm going to call the meeting to order, the meeting of June 16th, 2022. And I'm going to call it to order at 5:19 p.m. And we will do the roll call of people who are here. Nancy Crowley.
Nancy Crowley present.
Okay. Liz, do you want to just acknowledge your presence?
Sure. Liz Cobb's present.
Okay, and Bill Moracek present. So we're going to first of all go right to the approval of the minutes of April 13th, which was in the packet.
Right.
And I think the first thing is whether or not there are any questions or any edits that might be suggested for these minutes.
I had none.
Okay. Why don't we then take, I'll entertain a motion so that we can approve the minutes of April 13th.
Okay. I will make a motion to move to approve the minutes of April 13, 2022.
And then I
And
had.
I'll second.
Thank you. And then all in favor.
Aye.
I'll came out to the name, Liz Cobbs,
Nancy?
Nancy Crowley,
Yes.
and Bill Moracek, yes. Okay. Now we are on to the holiday policy updates. And there's two pieces of this. There's one which is the administration of holiday pay for BD Center employees. And then the second piece, I guess, here, the second bullet is administration of holiday pay housekeeping. So Amy, would you walk us through these pieces?
Happy to. Okay, so as you know, we've been talking about updating the holiday policy over the past year, or actually longer. We talked about that the state law now requires the town to be closed for Juneteenth, that everybody's been very supportive of that. And that did need to go to town meeting to become a paid leave benefit, because pay on a holiday is different than the opening. And so town meeting did vote to add the Juneteenth to the schedule of paid leave. There is, for the BD Center, we have a little bit of a different setup because they are an enterprise-based business, and the members that pay for service there may need to may wish to go use their membership on days that might not be regular. Sorry, I'm getting distracted because I keep can you hear that continual beeping on my, or chime on my computer? I don't know if it's that.
Yeah.
Something's connecting and disconnecting and connecting and disconnecting. So I'll try to ignore it, but if it's making it so you can't understand me, please let me know. So the BD Center operates a little bit differently because there are members that pay to come and get this service. So that is the history of how why they have a different holiday policy than others. And that had been approved by the town meeting some years ago. And there's a provision in the bylaw that says we could adopt different policies based on the operations. So that BD Center policy lists specific holidays when they're closed and how we handle their pay, which is why we needed to then list Juneteenth, make the decision to close on Juneteenth and list that in that policy. The general policy that applies to others doesn't list the specific holidays because those are in the bylaw. And so that's the difference between those. And while we were there, we wanted to do what I think is housekeeping, like to address some of the language, to make it clearer about the how the holidays apply to exempt and non-exempt employees, and then make sure that we're advising employees of options on what to do if they have some other sort of religious holiday that they're seeking accommodation for. that's something that we would do under the law. We'd look for accommodation, and we wanted to go further of making sure that we put that in the policy and talk about options there. The options that are available for accommodation will vary based on the position and what those duties are. But at least we're putting forth that we could, that we would work with the employee to make an accommodation. And so that's the summary of both of these policies. And I'm happy to answer questions. My computer wasn't ringing at me as I'm talking.
Poor thing. And the red is just the housekeeping for things to be tied up when it goes to print.
Right. That just shows what the difference is from the current policy to what's being proposed.
Right.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I have none.
Let's do I'll entertain a motion for the amended PPP number 12-1. And then we'll, Amy, do we need two different motions?
Well, you could choose to do it. I think it's probably cleaner as two. And so, yeah, you need somebody to make the motion and then somebody to second.
Okay. So I need to have Nancy or Liz.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm looking through all the materials you sent this morning, Amy, but I'm not clear which one is the PPP 12-1. I don't see that in the title.
So this morning was not related to what, it was just some background history. There was an email Monday that was the board packet for the meeting.
Okay.
Do you have that? I can put it on the screen.
No, I have it. Yeah, if you put it on the screen, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Give me a moment then to get to the packet. Okay. All right, let me see, this is the agenda. So minutes. Okay, so the first one is 12-1, administration of holiday pay for BD Center employees. And so here we've added to the number of hours to recognize one more holiday, added the reference to Juneteenth, Independence Day, did some other language changes, and so I'm saying it's housekeeping. Nothing that makes any notable change to the conditions of somebody's employment. And then we've added this section, which is recognizing that we would work with employees to accommodate any other religious holiday that they may observe.
Okay, that's very helpful to see it, and I think that gets recorded then too. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, I think then I'll entertain, we're going to do two different separate motions. And I need to have someone to move to amend the PPP 12-1. And as it's stated on our back of our first page of the motions.
I'll be happy to move the first one.
Okay,
So I would like to move to amend PPP number 12.1, administration of holiday pay for BD Center employees by adding Juneteenth and updating as proposed.
thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, thank you, Liz. And so we'll just I'll take a roll call vote. Nancy Crowley?
Yes.
Yes, okay. And Liz Cobbs?
Yep.
And then Bill Marachek, yes. All right, so now we're ready for the second motion. that pertains to PPT 12, Administration of Holiday Pay, as updated in the material that we have.
So you're looking for a motion regarding PPP 12.
Right.
Right. It's, Liz, it's right on the, right now you can read it right off the screen.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. I see.
So we would just need somebody to verbally say that they move to amend PPP 12, number 12, administration of holiday pay by updating as proposed. So we either need Nancy or Liz to make a motion, that's the
Right.
proposed, and then the other person would second, say agree.
So I'll say it and then Liz can second it if that's
That's fine.
okay. All right, so I move to amend PP number 12, administration of holiday pay by updating as proposed.
All right.
And I second.
And then we have a second. All in
I
favor?
second.
Nancy Crowley,
Aye.
Liz Cobbs,
Aye.
and Bill Marachek, aye. All right, we're going to move to agenda item number 4, which is the FY23 salary increase plan. And you want to, Amy, give us a little bit of background on this?
Happy to. So, so back in the fall, as we prepared for town meeting and working on the budget, there was discussion about the salary ranges and what we might be able to provide for salary increases this year. And it's worked its way through that process. And town meeting did approve the recommended adjustments to salary ranges, which overall were 3%. And then we've, as you know, made some additional adjustments where we saw data that justified that. The budget, it included funds for an increase. And so there was enough, the finance director or the town manager had reviewed that and determined that we could offer up to a 4%, depending where people are at within the range. And so now that town meeting has put those things in place, then we're at the point of adopting an increased plan for the upcoming fiscal year. And in past years, we had, I would say, a more complex and detailed plan that went on for years, where different employees in different groups had slightly different plans. Some had a much more merit-based plan that, depending on their overall evaluation, they would get an increase. If they got an outstanding, they'd get the highest amount. If they had a needs improvement, they'd get the lowest amount. That was true of some of the managerial positions. Others just had a flat amount that they would get if their performance was satisfactory. We had been talking before the pandemic about looking at revamping those plans and coming up with something more consistent for all groups, and simpler to administer and for employees to understand. Then the pandemic came along and changed the financial situation pretty significantly, and that has had an impact on salaries for the last few years. And so really at that time, we weren't able to provide some of the same movement within salary ranges that we had in the past. And former town manager Stephen Crane was really working within the available funds to provide as much as we could, but the plans that had been offered before were suspended and redesigned for a few years. what that does is provide us with an opportunity, actually, to restructure it going forward. And one thing that I think can be advantageous is to move everybody onto a fiscal year basis, a July 1 basis, and continue to follow that pattern. So this proposal here is a much more simplified plan than what we used to have, and it provides that on July 1, all the employees that are here would get a 3% increase on July 1. That's the same amount that the scales move. I refer to that as a structure movement. Towns often refer to it as a COLA, a cost of living adjustment. We look at various things, what's happening in the market and with the cost of living, but we don't call it a COLA. I don't think that's the right name, because it's clearly not directly tied to the cost of living as much to looking at market types of conditions. But the 3% would move people along with the scales and ranges. And then we've got employees that have not made it to the max of that scale, and the intent is to move them progressively through until they hit the max. And so the amount that we could provide this year for that would be a 1%. You wanted to give the most benefit to the most employees, which is why the 3% is a higher amount, but we are capped by the maximums. And so those employees that are at max will only get the 3. People are still working their way through would get a 1%. We do tie it to performance, at least on a basic level. We'll need to rebuild a system again now that things were suspended for the last few years. We'll have to rebuild a formal performance evaluation system, but we at least still tie this to say that somebody has to be at a satisfactory level of performance in order to be eligible for the increases. And there also needs to be funds available. You can see up here, we say, I think there are funds for all of these increases, but I think as we've talked about in the past, funding sources vary considerably. We have grant funded positions that we have less control over, but we've been working very hard to make sure we work funds into the budget to provide for salary increases for employees, even if the grants don't. So that's something, again, we've talked about in the past that the town's been working to improve and to change. So, and then there's a provision here that we have employees that that are new. And so in that case, we provide the progression within the range once they've completed their in-training period. And we do not have anything in here for after July or after June 30 of 2023, because that's a different fiscal year and we can't make that commitment at this time.
Amy, I have a question. You might have answered it. The 3%, all employees 3%. So what happens if somebody's in the minimum, but that moves them to the max? Does that automatically happen? Or do they get what it, I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Let me see if I can give an example. So if somebody right now is at the minimum of the pay range, on July 1, that range is going up 3%. So their pay will also go up 3%. So they'll be at the new minimum. But on top of that, they'll move 1%. I'm sorry, they'd be at the new minimum and then they'd move 1% for this second bullet on here, that if it isn't at the maximum yet, they get the 1%. Versus somebody who is at maximum, right now, they're at the top of their range. That range changes, it's increasing 3%, or in some cases more. They can get the 3%, but they can't get 1% if they're at the new maximum. It's only went. Does that make sense? I don't.
Yeah, it does. I was just thinking if somebody was getting 3%, but wasn't thinking that the whole minimum range was moving 3%,
Yeah.
which would then allow them to still stay in the minimum range. Okay, I got it now. Thanks.
Amy, this is Bill. How many employees are currently at the maximum?
I did have that here. And my computer would stop. I think this is what's happening. Sorry, I think it's 20% at the moment. Let me just see.
Well, so, I mean, it doesn't
Yeah,
have to be
it's
exact.
20%.
So,
I do have that figure, but I can't access it right at this second.
So-
but I have in my
so
head.
what this will mean is that those 20% essentially will not, well, unless they're in a particular classification in which the range increased by greater than 3%, those 20%, that 20% will not typically be eligible for the additional 1%.
Right, right. So just to give you a scope, right now, there are 164 employees in the snapshot that we recently did that are regular status, non-union employees that are covered by the personnel bylaw. We have many other employees, like the union employees, but these are the ones that are impacted, are 164 right now. So 28% would be capped once this increase is changing. So roughly a little over 118 won't be. So as you were saying, Bill, those people that are capped can only get the 3%.
Right. One additional, which it's sort of aside from what I'm looking at right now, and I don't want to discuss it, but I'd like to be able to have you send out what information defines in training period. I mean, I understand what the purpose is and all of that, but I'm just curious is what's the backup? What's the detail? What's the terms and provisions associated with that particular classification, I guess, or category of employees? So we don't need to, if I can just make a note in the minutes too, Liz, just that I've requested more detail on what is called the in training period.
Do you want me to give any
Hey,
explanation at all now or no?
No, I mean, I think I want to keep on the agenda. This, though, I think is relevant for the future, but this has what I'm talking about has nothing at all to do with the recommendation in the salary increase plan.
I've taken note, Bill, so I have your question for future. And Amy, I have also a question for, in my experience, so they're hired and then they're in training for a period of 2 to 6 months generally. And then immediately to get a wage increase seems a bit unusual in any circumstance, that it would be, first to get through a year and see how they do and have a full assessment prior to getting any increase, because they've just finished signing an agreement on the role they'd be playing with the salary already written up. So could you explain a bit more why is that?
Yeah, so it's 6 months. And it can be extended for up to another 6 months by the town manager. So it's a probationary period. And it's, I think, very common or has been standard in the municipal world. Most towns have what they call step increases. And there's a way that you move forward from working from the minimum up to the max through step increases. And it, from what I've seen in the past, it's just a pretty standard thing in the municipal world to be able to get your first step once you have finished the in training. We've often used that as in talking with people about coming on board. They might be during salary negotiations saying that they would like more, and we'd say, well, will get you there. You can get there as long as you successfully get through that first 6 months. So it is part of that discussion at the beginning, but it's
But
something I think it's worth looking at as well, Liz, about as we, over the next year, are looking at the compensation plan and coming up with new strategies. I think figuring out how to apply that going forward makes a lot of sense.
And so it's part of how the jobs are negotiated is what you've described. So when people are signing up for these roles, it's part of the negotiation. Is that only if instigated by the new employee, or is that a general part of the negotiation is you'll get a raise after you complete the training?
Yeah, I mean, it's usually been a set amount, so we advise them of that during the salary discussions when they're hired. A few years ago, the common amount, it was 5% that basically if you get through this for 6 months, or at the end of it, you would get 5%. So let's say they were asking for $20 an hour, and we would say, well, you'll start at 18. I'm not doing the math in my head, but you'll start at 18, but please know if things go well, you'll get there in 6 months, because this is what our salary plan is. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It seems like if it was a 5% increase, it might be more that it was normalized as part of the negotiation for the role, but 1% doesn't really seem like a do or die for a negotiation. So, maybe we need to look at that again about how the roles are negotiated originally and what the training. So Bill, I'll add that to your note if it's all right, on more information on the in-training.
Yes.
And maybe we can have a further discussion about how that fits in with the whole negotiation for the role for the new employee and what it implies about going forward.
Good. Yeah, I think that's excellent.
Yeah, we really like through this next year as we go through this study and develop the new systems, we can envision that we might go back to something that's more like other municipalities with steps, or something that really gives employees a better understanding of what to expect for the future, and is clearer. That we don't, individual negotiations bring up a lot of other topics and all of that. So yeah, we won't go too far down that, but I think it's an important part of this whole review over the next year of compensation strategy and setting policies for the future.
I think this is really all good, and I think it pertains directly to what can the personnel board become more involved with from a strategic standpoint. And I think this is, as Liz has pointed out, a really good topic. Is it the best? I don't know, but at least it's one that's come up here. I think the other possibility, and Liz, this is also for the notes, is I'd like to be able to, at some time, look at the performance review, the execution of performance reviews in the packet or in the material that Amy sent out yesterday. She attached 3 of the different types of performance reviews. Now, there is no perfect performance review. If there was, everybody in the country would be following. So I think there has to be discussions as to what's the purpose, value, and then exactly what perhaps is the best form. And I think this is another area that the personnel board could certainly participate in providing its input. So that's just another side note, I guess, as well.
I
So
agree. I love that.
What's that?
I agree and would love that. I can see some ways that we could work together on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was thinking to myself, I was in the military for 2 years and came from a military family, but step increases are really very common in the military. based on your grade and based on length of service. I mean, and if there's any sort of example in the country about step increases, I think the military system is probably the one that's at the top. That doesn't make it that anybody should follow it, but I bet you there's some good literature out there from associations or like as to studies that have maybe have been done about the pros and cons of step increases versus the pros and cons of perhaps alternative methodologies. But it feels right to me to say this could be a very fruitful area for the personnel board to take a look at. All right, any other points, Nancy or Liz, or because I think we could move on to a motion to adopt the proposed FY23 salary increase plan.
Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we've exhausted our conversation. And I'll entertain a motion for the approving the adoption of the FY23 salary increase plan.
This is Liz. Nancy, I'll basically, I as the newest member, I'll defer to you to do the first, but I'll try my hand at it this time. I propose that we adopt the amendment for the fiscal year 23 salary increase plan.
All right, thank you. And a second,
All right, I'll second.
Nancy. So all in favor, Nancy
Aye.
Crowley,
Aye.
Liz Cobbs,
I
and Bill Maranchek, aye. We're on to item number 5 on the agenda, the classification and compensation discussion. And Amy, you'll need to, again, help us with that.
Sure. Okay, sorry, first one is correction of the EL3B range. Well, I'm quite embarrassed to say that I made an administrative error that ended up being in the warrant. I'm happy to say that it's the first time that I'm aware that I've done that in decades, but I'm not happy about it. So whatever, I'll live with that. But basically what happened was that in the wage scales that are printed in the warrant, the range for the grade 2 line worker, which is that new EL3B range, was printed to be exactly the same as a grade above it for the line worker grade 1. And that was a last minute copy paste error apparently that happened after the proofreading. So I must have just done so because I saw another version that was correct. So unfortunately, nobody along the way noticed it, or if they did, they didn't speak up before town meeting, and so it went through. It is voted at town meeting. So that now means that we need to make a correction and basically look at sort of reclassifying the placement of that grade 2. And so what I got here is a description of what the range was intended to be, to follow the same pattern of increases that everybody else had. I'm scrolling ahead. Sorry, this is the schedule. This is the EL3B. I don't know if it's not letting me select it, but yeah, so the EL3B, I've listed what the intended minimum max were, and the warrant instead read exactly the same as the line worker grade 1. Love it. So it's a administrative correction. It will need to be ratified at the next town meeting. We have one employee that is in that grade. I understand from the light plant director that they are aware of this, that at the light plant that they had noticed that, and it wouldn't have any negative impact in that person would still get the same increase that they would have otherwise. But I wouldn't want there to be the wrong range out there with people misunderstanding that anybody in that grade could go up to the 55, 69. That's not the case.
Okay, any comments, questions regarding the line worker grade 2 classification?
Nope.
No, just apologies, nobody caught it. I'm sure I should have been reading more closely
No.
also. You said one person, Amy, is impacted. And how is that individual accepting this issue? Is there some pushback or?
I have not spoken with that individual. I'm not aware of that. It doesn't change that person's pay. They still would have got the same amount on this under the salary increase plan. I guess it's really if that individual thought that they now suddenly would have the opportunity in the future to go up to that higher rate. So I'm sorry, I have not spoken to them directly, so I don't know.
So maybe my question is misleading because I guess I'm assuming that a grade 2 person, a line worker, could grow into a grade 1 line worker. Is that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's a good point, Liz, because of that is the path that is typical. So somebody goes from a 3 to a 2 to a 1. It is different than pretty much any other position around town, because that is the intention. That is part of becoming a full line worker, is going through those. So I would fully expect when that person has or anybody else that is a line worker too has gotten all the training and is ready to move to a grade 1, they'll move, and then they would have that full salary range, the line worker 1 available to them.
Okay, I think we should just go ahead and Nancy, do you want to move?
I'll move to reallocate the line worker grade 2 classification title by changing the grade EL-3B range to $35.56 minimum and $44.82 max, with a midpoint of 40.19, effective July 1st, 2022.
All right, and a second?
And this is Liz Cobbs, I second.
Okay, so all in favor, Nancy Crowley,
Aye.
Liz Cobbs,
Aye.
and Bill Marachek, aye. Okay, we're going to move on to have Amy talk with us about the amendment necessary for the miscellaneous
Right.
compensation schedule updates.
Thank you. So we have 3 miscellaneous compensation schedules. There are minor updates to all. So I'm going to start here on the screen. I'm showing the schedule 7-1, and these are proposed changes to be effective July 1, 2022. And the first change is just a simple removal of a title and grade that we have not used for a while, the youth services coordinator. Actually, the duties that were being performed by a youth services coordinator years ago were incorporated into the community services coordinator, that the position that the personnel board recently acted on and changing a grade. So we don't need this anymore. And if we do need it in the future, it would be appropriate to relook at the duties in the salary range. So I'd rather not leave it sitting here as we're trying to update all of our compensation plans. So that's the reason for that one. In the library, we have some recommendations to move some maximums. The library is interesting because we have a few positions that are non-union and therefore are subject to personnel board approval and appear on these ranges, but the majority of the positions are covered by a collective bargaining agreement with the exact same duties and titles, except that to be covered under the collective bargaining agreement, a position needs to work. I'm trying to remember the threshold now. I think it's 8 hours, more than 8 hours. So you've got some people, library pages can often be they might work 1 day a week or 1 shift, that sort of thing. So there aren't many people in these types of ranges, but bottom line is we would like to increase the maximums to be more reflective or consistent with where we're at with the union contracts at this point. There's not an obligation for it to exactly match, but we do want to be aware of pay equity and to keep those consistent. That's the reason for those changes. So then moving on to Schedule 2, which is where we list all of the recreation positions and functions. We've got a section here for the managerial group that is, these are basically sub ranges of what town meeting approved. And so just like we applied the 3% of increase to other ranges on the class and comp plan by town meeting, we want to apply that same 3% to this group at the BD Center. We don't think that right now more than that is needed. We'll certainly again be looking at all of the positions over the next year again, but this is a combination of thinking about both the market, internal equity, and the budget. So I would like to move that same 3%. This is the group exercise instructor. There's a reference to the max. There is a separate max for those that are full-time positions. So I'm updating the reference from 6120 to 6304 to keep it consistent with the schedule that was adopted by town meeting.
So Amy, sorry, before you move on, I have a couple of questions. So they won't be too hard to go back and do. So on the library piece, was one before the managerial. Your explanation was that these are now more in line with the union collective bargaining. Do you have any information for us on did I miss that, where the collective bargain sits? They don't have to be exact, right? But
they don't have to be exact. So these maximums are very close. I think they're rounded a bit to the same types of positions that are in the bargaining unit. I don't have in front of me the exact ranges that are in there. I could pull them up. There isn't a library project specialist actually is not a bargaining unit position. It would be one that we need periodically that we hire on a temporary basis. I'm sorry, would you like me to pull up the contract? No,
it's, I guess what I'm trying to figure out, because since that was a benchmark, right, with the union collective bargain, I just, the numbers 2889, how did those come about? What's the calculation? So I was thinking, well, maybe if I understood better what the collective bargain was, then I'd understand how these how you came to these numbers.
Yeah, so during the collective bargaining process, we would be negotiating range adjustments that are similar to the way we just brought things forward to the town meeting, but it's all looking at total compensation. So we'd consider other types of benefits as well. So these amounts are reflective of the fact that this in this contract, an increase was agreed to the ranges, for the ranges with the library. I'm sorry, I don't know that I'm actually answering what you're looking for, but that's a process that we negotiate with them about what an annual increase might be. And these proposals are looking to be consistent, but not necessarily exactly match the agreement depending on the situation. With library assistants, they're pretty much all going to do the same work. Library pages that are working more limited hours, so they're on this scale, may do a bit less than those that are there on a more regular basis. I don't know that I'm answering what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, it's not quite answered, but I understand, what I was looking for is what sort of formula or how did those numbers, the ranges get reviewed, you know? That's what I was looking for, but if you can't explain that, I understand that they're tagged to the union collective bargain. And so the ranges were somehow calculated to align with that, but not exactly. So you're not using the collective bargaining calculations,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah, so, yeah, I don't know how much you want me to go into how we set the ranges through collective bargaining. That's, we can talk more about that. That's,
Well, yeah, but those are with union support and so forth, but what we're supposed to manage is the non-union, right? So
Right.
I was more interested in how that calculation was organized from, the non-union side, understanding that there was a, equivalency in your mind about that.
yeah, I'd say this is not a formula. This is more intended to be an equivalency.
So the question that I think is, the question in my mind is still, what data did you use from what sources? Plus, but you obviously had the union data information.
That's
So
what,
did you have any other external data sources to help in this calculation?
no, not in that. No, this was based on the union
Okay.
part to maintain some consistency there.
Okay.
Particularly for the limited status and temporary positions, there's such a wide range. We're talking about hundreds of positions, all with a little bit of variety. So we have left, we haven't gone and gotten specific market data for every single position on the miscellaneous comp schedules. That has not been the approach. And so again, talking about compensation strategy going forward, we might want to look at that, but it is a very different approach than those for the regular status ongoing positions, because of the nature of the way that we need to fill those positions in the wide variety. But it's kind of a whole conversation on its own, so I'm trying not to go down that too much detail, but provide you what you need.
All right, I think my sense is, Liz, that you're still a little, you may have to reflect on this a little, and maybe, if you could be, whatever would be helpful for you to make certain that you're feeling comfortable about the question you've asked and the answer that we need to give you.
Well, yeah, I mean, these are, for these three that are here for the library, I understand the goal was appropriate to the task at hand, right? To align this with other workers, so
Right.
there would be equity across. But so maybe then we can go down to the managerial staff. There must be, those are more hefty salaries too. And I understand they're only ranges, right? These are the ranges. It's not saying exactly who's what, but what those ranges could be. And there's, some changes. It's really, I don't know here too, what's the formula that's being used to ensure that, because as you said, Amy, you need, perhaps need, but you said no additional market data has been collected, which understood, that's another thing that we're looking at doing, right? But in the meantime, you had to do some changes to the min and max of these salary ranges. And I'm wondering how you are able, there must be some process you're following there. I just want to understand that.
Right, so there's a combination. We do not gather market data for every single position for all the hundreds of positions. We look at benchmark and we try to align that benchmark positions. And we also look at maintaining a system of equity, a hierarchy. And so when positions are classified and we look at scales to determine kind of what sort of, how they should be grouped into grades and and levels, that sets a structure. And then there, at points in time, there is strategy about, okay, we want to try to align these, let's say, to be around the 80th percentile of the market. And then we build that, that schedule using benchmark data combined with a formula for classification and weighted factors for grouping positions to create a class and comp plan. Then at various times we make across the board adjustments based on what we have available in the budget, what we're seeing about our ability to successfully attract from those positions, what we're seeing about changes in the market. Sometimes it's a recalculation of all the benchmarks, which again is what we need to do. And other times it's looking about, this is what we can do this year. This is how we can do something across the board. We can't take every single one and move them all around every time based on the market for one particular position. We've got to keep it as a whole structure.
Sure.
I don't know that's
Well,
what-
yeah, no, but so Amy, then that's a very helpful explanation. Thank you. So what you described is you have a periodic reassessment, and clearly for the managerial staff at the BD center, because this is all swim and fitness, right? So is it, yeah, so all in that one facility. And what were, I guess, then what were the prompts that led to this year that staff at the managerial level being targeted for this shift in the ranges?
So this wasn't across the board. This is consistent with everything that we just did at town meeting, where we took all of the ranges and there was a decision to move them all 3%. And those that we had information that suggested that 3% wasn't sufficient, also made additional adjustments in others. If we do too many individual adjustments, the entire schedule will come off. So we try to move them all in most times all the same amount. And when we need to make corrections or adjustments based on what's going on in the market, we might make some adjustments beyond that. So this represents that same 3% that was brought forward to town meeting as the overall adjustment for positions this year.
So it's only the 3%. I'm sorry, I'm not, my head isn't so quick. It's certainly not today about that's a 3% change. So, but that's what that represents, is the 3% that it doesn't mean that we had a challenge with filling those roles at Bede Center or anything like that. It wasn't, more in the marketplace that had changed, but following what was passed at town meeting in the 3%.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
And
Okay,
at some point, maybe we'd say these really need more specific restructuring, and that's part of what a more detailed class and comp study might do. But we also, when we don't do a class and comp study, we're gathering data from various places and seeing if any of the ranges need adjustment beyond something across the board. Where we can do across the board to keep the internal equity, we do that. We want to try to have differentials between the grades. But there are multiple factors going on there. And it all needs to be reevaluated again in detail to make sure that we have a approach to doing this that people can understand, that it's up to date, and we have a strategy moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Liz, does that, anything else that comes to your mind to help you understand?
No, that's very helpful.
Yeah,
it's just as I'm catching up as a new person on the board too, I just want to make sure that I'm, understanding all the ins and outs of things that you all probably are on top of already. So I apologize for taking up time, but it's very helpful for me to feel more confident in what's going on. Thank you.
This is all time well spent and good refreshers for for both Nancy and myself, or I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
Um, let's, for the minutes, I'd also like to just put in there that at some point in the future, I'd like to have the BD Center, I guess, general manager or the relevant people give us feedback on the results or the lessons learned from this incentive plan that we, Personnel Board, reviewed and recommended. I think it, and I'm not sure when that time is, but I just want to make a note that it's in the minutes that I think sometimes going back and asking the people who were involved at the outset, what did they learn? And if they had to do something differently, what would it be, if anything? I'd just like to make a note that we should think about doing sometime in the future.
Mhm.
And this Liz came about just prior to your joining, a recommendation from the BD Center leadership team, I'm going to say, along with the assistant town manager, and certainly help from Amy and HR, came up with a plan, incentive plan, to help compensate those individuals in the BD Center, especially those involved with training, and trying to make certain that the overall compensation level of people here in Concord at the BD Center is, is more comparable to the private industry and to private clubs. And that was the genesis of why that particular proposal was submitted. And I think if you go back, if you're interested, Liz, you can go back, I think, into some previous packets, agenda packets in the history of the Personnel Board, and I think you'll see what those are. This
Okay.
again this is an area where the Personnel Board can and did extend itself to provide some, I think, very valuable input as to fine tuning the incentive plan and pointing out particular areas that maybe needed a revisit or a refresh. So I think this was a really good project for the Personnel Board to have been involved with.
Oh,
Okay,
that's great.
I think Nancy, can you give us? I think we're ready for a.
Okay,
an-
I will
motion.
move, I'll move to amend the miscellaneous compensation schedules as proposed.
All right.
And I second.
All right. Thank you, Liz. So all in favor, Nancy Crowley,
Aye.
Liz Cobbs,
Aye.
and Bill Maratchek, aye. Now, the item number 6 is the Personnel Study Task Force. General update and discussion. I know that Terry Ackerman, who is, by the way, our new liaison, is not with us tonight. And I know that there is a meeting coming up of the Personnel Task Force, I think on the 13th of July. And then there's a meeting that's going to get proposed jointly with the Personnel Board, I think sometime, hopefully the end of July. But Amy, I'm being very general and not very specific, but anything that comes to your mind that should be perhaps mentioned at this particular point?
No, I am not directly involved in that. I think that they have, so I don't have anything.
Okay, understand, right. Any questions from Nancy or Liz as to the item number 6, Personnel Task Force? Any questions that you might have or wanted to at least see if we could answer?
I don't have anything at the moment. I just want to figure out, just would like to know what dates they're thinking of, because I think we all have stuff summertime wise, vacations and time away. So I'm hoping that we can come up with a time that we're all together.
Okay. All right,
Yeah,
so,
On my side, I had signed on to attend their last meeting, but unfortunately it wasn't it wasn't posted early enough, and so they had to cancel that meeting. a week or two ago.
Oh, right.
So
yes,
I was
they
hopeful
did.
that I would be able to support this meeting by telling you what I'd heard at the last meeting, but their meeting was canceled. So I think you're right, Bill. It's not for another week or two that they'll meet.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Item 7, future meeting schedule. So we have June 23rd, and we said it's 6:30. Is that correct, Amy?
Right.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
different time. And what are you, any idea of what we might, not cast in concrete, but what we might cover at that time?
Yeah, so the reason I originally wanted to do a meeting afterwards is there are a couple classification actions that need to come forward. So things that were position changes that were worked into the budget and are available July 1 that departments would like to implement. I haven't actually been able to do those classification reviews yet. I'm going to try to do them because I know people would like those in place. So if we can keep the 23rd ready for that purpose, that would be helpful, but it is possible that I can't get those ready and then we'd need to do something in the future. Probably not too far out, but, and then there had been talk about, there might be some other things, Bill, that you would like to address, and I didn't know if you thought this would be an opportunity to touch base on specific topics
Okay.
or not, so.
All right. I think one of the, which is their monthly schedule, I think we need to, as a board, we need to figure out how can we establish a monthly meeting date time. Now, that doesn't mean we have to always adhere to that, and it doesn't mean that there wouldn't be additional ones and so forth. But I think it would be important to give some thought to what day of the week makes the most sense for people based on their personal schedules and other commitments, and what time makes the most sense. So I guess I would like to have Nancy, you and Liz just give some thought to that question of day of the week and time. And, maybe this doesn't start in July because of vacations and other things that are going on. And maybe what we do is actually, let's recognize that people are on vacations. So their schedules are still maybe in some ways a little up in the air. But I think what we should maybe do is look towards September, the fall. Look to see if we can't, before the fall, obviously, come up with a day of the week and time that we can set as a regular personnel board meeting. Any thoughts about that, Nancy or Liz, as to my request in looking at the fall to start?
No, that sounds great. It will give me time to, I'm sure Liz too, to try to figure out what meetings, what meetings I have meet on certain nights and some meet in the morning. So anyways, to try to figure something out. Gets a little sketchy there at times, so.
Right.
And it does make more sense. Most of my things that I belong to do have a pretty set schedule. So anyways, yeah, I think it's a good thing to look at.
Yeah, fully agree. And I'm, to do that in September, but maybe set a couple of meetings over the summer that are more ad hoc might be useful. I can tell you that now I'll be out of town from June 29 through July 6. So if the 23rd does get delayed, if we could do it, before the 29th, that would be important for me. And then, more business after that. I'm around then until the end of August, I believe. So, but that's still tentative too, so.
Okay. Amy, is it possible to set a date that will be either a go or no go for the 23rd? Right now it's tentative, but as opposed to waiting till the day before and saying, oh, we're not going to, it'd be helpful, I think, if can we come up with day. I don't know if it's Monday or, well, it actually, it's going to have to be a few days for posting anyway, so.
You mean as an alternative if we don't do on the 23rd? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, if the 23rd is not going to be a date that there will be any agenda, then we, I think the sooner we knew that, the better.
Right.
Right.
But I don't know when is sooner? Is sooner like the Monday, the 20th? Or is sooner the 21st? But if we have to have, if we're having a meeting on the 23rd, you have to, doesn't this have to be posted on the 21st?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe that's enough time.
I think it's a question of how much whether I can do it over the weekend is basically it.
Yeah.
Have I these classifications. I'm not sure because they've got some other.
So in case it gets delayed, I just want to let you know that the 27th evening, I already have a board meeting for another duty I have. So I can try to, I think the 28th evening, if it's going to be delayed past the 23rd. And then let's see, 24th. It's Friday. I could still hold on the Friday, the 24th, if that's easier for you, Amy. It gives you a little more time.
Yeah, actually, I mean, if we can find a date sometime before the 29th now, that's a little later, then maybe that's just a good idea. If everybody's available, let's say the 28th.
That's I'll have to check. See, I have to get my calendar if you want to wait.
That would give a more realistic schedule and we wouldn't have to leave it as a maybe.
All right. So the 23rd is fine for me. So on the 28th, I have my Lions board meeting at 7. So, you know, unfortunately, I mean, for a while there, we were running really late on our meetings. So anyways, and then the 29th and 30th, I'm gone to Maine and I'll be back on the Friday. So I won't be available for 29th or 30, definitely. And I'm actually away on the 28th in Boston, but I'll be back that afternoon. So that's a tough week for me.
What about Friday, Nancy, the 24th, to at least try to give Amy another day before she has to post?
Friday, the 24th.
Yeah.
Do you ever, are morning meetings something that works for all of you or different time? Does that help in any way?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think morning meetings do help if, unfortunately, some of them I'm, you know, like that particular week, the 27th, the week of the 27th is pretty tough unless it was the Monday night. No way.
Well, I wondered about the morning of the 24th, whether there's any benefit to doing that.
Yeah, I'm available the morning of the 24th, the Friday.
Yeah, better in the morning than at night in case I need to. Sometimes I'll go away for the weekend. So, what time? 8, 9?
Bill, does that work for you too? Friday next week?
So we're talking June 24th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can, June 24th works for me. So we want to go ahead and just change the 24th?
Will it make a difference, Amy? Just one day?
Perhaps a little, but not, maybe not notably. It gives me one more work day, maybe rather than doing it all on the weekend, I suppose, but,
So
yeah.
the crux, though, the other crunch is that it needs to go forward for July 1st, right?
Well, it doesn't have to, because that's when the positions are available in the budget, and we've got people that are hoping to put those into effect. So no, it's not, if it doesn't, even if it went into July 15th, it would still work. It's just that people are hoping to get that done. So, you know, either is fine with me. I am either going to have, I've got some employee situations that I need to resolve that have to be addressed, so I will do that. And then I think I'll be able to get through these classifications, and we could meet on the 23rd. And as you said, I'd have to know by the 21st, which is Tuesday, actually, looking at the calendar. So I could
But
certainly,
Monday is Juneteenth, which is now officially the
right.
holiday, right? So.
Right.
Right.
So I think I'll be able to do it all. I'd rather keep it going and help it, and not make this more
Right.
complicated. So I will, so either is okay with me. I don't know that it makes a big difference now. I mean, either going to get it done or there's going to be a problem, but either the 23rd is planned. 24th in the morning is also okay with me. And if I find over the next few days, I really just can't get it done, I will let you know. And then I think we'd be looking at perhaps, it sounds like maybe we'd look after the 6th of July or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
just to recap, we're going to keep 6:30 PM on Thursday, June 23rd. And we're going to add a tentative June 24th in the morning. Is that what?
I don't think that makes a difference. That's fine if I'm, I just
Okay,
don't
so
think
we-
I'm either
we're
gonna
gonna-
do it
we
next
just
week
keep-
or I'm not.
Right.
we'll keep the 23rd.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and I will let you know early next week if I really just can't pull it off. And if I can't, then what we'd be looking for is a date after Liz is available on July, after
Okay.
July 6th. But I'm gonna try to pull it off.
okay.
My plan.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Alright.
And I guess the other item for the 23rd meeting would potentially just be an update to the receipt of the RFP for the compensation study. Am I correct in that, Amy?
Yeah, and I think Kelly is available, so she could come in and talk about that on the 23rd.
Okay. All right, so I think we're at the public comment. We don't have a huge audience. You know, I think we had about 10,000 people and now we are down to 4. I'm not kidding, but so
We don't,
any comment from the public?
the one person that we had, the employer we had has now logged out, so it's just the board and me.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm going to entertain adjournment, a motion to adjourn.
Right. I make a motion that we adjourn at 6:32 PM.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Is there a second?
Okay.
I second.
Thanks, Liz. And all in favor, we'll just, Liz Cobbs,
Aye.
Nancy Crowley,
Aye.
and Bill Marachek, aye. Thank you both.
All right. All right. great.
Thanks, everybody.
See you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, see
Bye,
everybody
Amy.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.